forest degradation goal by 2020. The scale and urgency of the threat require that we tackle this together. What the governor of Central Kalimantan did in pioneering his province to be the first pilot province for the REDD Plus initiative is truly admirable. Mr. Bapak Teras Narang and also Bapak Barnabas Seibu, soon you will not be alone. I heard that many governors are now moving towards the same direction, proposing their provinces for REDD Plus implementation. And to support your efforts, the Minister of Forestry and WWF are arranging a field trip to the province of Central Kalimantan, to Sabangau National Park, to learn how Central Kalimantan has performed successfully in restoring peatland of National Park, which prevent more than 1 million tons of carbon from being emitted in just a 50,000 hectare plot. I'd like to encourage the B4E participant to enroll in this field trip. Ladies and gentlemen, my appreciation goes to the Consumer Goods Forum with their pledge to mobilize collective resources to help achieve the zero net deforestation goal by 2020. I'm impressed with the number of companies operating in Indonesia, such as Carrefour, Nokia, and a company which recently made a strong transformation toward sustainability, like PT Smart Tbk. You are all developing and implementing sustainability programs which are in line with zero net deforestation 2020 goal, as well as the government of Indonesia's 26% to 41% GHG reduction emission target. The growing efforts of cooperation towards environmental and economic sustainability are also well reflected in the action of the Indonesian public. On any single day, in the media there are articles and coverage of environmental issues. The Earth Hour, for example, recent event managed to mobilize and reach millions of people in 5 major cities in Java. With the full support of the government of Jakarta, energy saved in this 1-hour campaign in Jakarta alone was 170 megawatts. A single company like Garuda Indonesia recorded as much as 1 megawatt energy saved during 1-hour Earth campaign. I congratulate Bapak Emir Shah Sattar for this. I also would like to applaud the Minister of Environment. Your work since Professor Emil Salim's time, Pak Rahmat Witular, and now Pak Gusti, has moved the Indonesian public and corporation closer to the environmental concerns and values, prompted us to action in our daily life. The bold Indonesia pledge of 26% and 41% emission reduction targets resonate well in our society and the business world. The people, media, corporation, governors, and even international community, with a special note to His Excellency, even home, the Ambassador of Norway, you are here to show your support to Indonesia. And I'm looking forward to hearing many pledges in this summit. Thank you for your perseverance, passion, and commitment to saving the environment. And thank you for your participation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Stambol. Now, last but not least, could I please call on Andrew Steer, Special Envoy for Climate Change at the World Bank.
Bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu yang terhormat, selamat pagi dan terima kasih banyak atas kesempatan ini. You have no idea how nice it is for me personally to be back here in Indonesia and to share the platform with Pak Sulisto, Pak Kamal, Pak Hatta is a great honor. I have spent 8 of the happiest years of my life in this country on 2 different occasions, and it is a very great joy to come back and see Indonesia emerging as such an important global player. The international discussion on climate change and sustainability can be very frustrating at times. Sometimes reminds one of 2 men standing and looking at a beautiful house, and the house is on fire. And the men look at each other and they say, the house is on fire, should we not put it out? And one of them says, well, are you sure it's on fire? Maybe it's just smoke. The other says, no, I think it's really on fire. We really should put it out. And then one says, yeah, but aren't you the one who left the gas on? You caused the fire, you put it out. And the person says, well, yeah, but I can't put it out on my own. I'll get burned, so you have to help me. So the other says, well, okay, you go first, though, and then I'll come in later if you need me. And the first says, no, we need to go in together. And I'm not willing to go in unless you go in. You've got to do your bit at the same time. And the other says, well, okay, I'll come in with you, but only if you pay me. And the person says, well, I'll pay you, but only the incremental cost. And I actually don't really trust you, so I'm going to have to get my lawyer. And then they say, well, this is getting too complicated, so let's have some meetings. And we meet every year, and we then have intercessionals. And in the meantime, the house keeps burning, and people get hurt. Now, some people look at the climate change negotiations, and that's how they feel. But actually, there is good news. There are more than 90 countries today that have now registered their intentions with regard to addressing climate change with the UNFCCC. If you add these 90 countries' commitments together, and these are not legally binding, but they're commitments up to the year 2020, this represents the biggest effort in the history of the world to address greenhouse gases. And that's a wonderful thing. The problem is, it's not enough. If you add them all together and you look at the very top range of what's been committed, it works out to about 60% of what we need to do by 2020 if we're to get on to a world that only warms up by 2 degrees. Currently, we're on the way towards global warming of 3 or 4 degrees, and this is very serious. Most of the calculations that have been made in terms of the impact of climate change assume only 2-degree warming. And even with that, the impacts are very large. For developing countries, maybe something like 5% of GDP will be taken off permanently. But actually, if the rate of warming is 3 degrees or 4 degrees, it's going to be much more serious. Temperature rises will seriously affect our agriculture and our ecosystems. Extreme weather events will become even more extreme with huge impact. Sea level rises will take away a lot of our cities. Yesterday I was in the Philippines, where they are launching their climate change action plan. Of the 1,500 municipalities in the Philippines, 60% of them are in low-lying areas, making the Philippines perhaps the most threatened country in the world with regard to storm surges. Indonesia also is very deeply threatened by climate change. Well, so much for the bad news. There's good news too. In Cancun last December, the world made good progress building trust and agreeing on some important steps. On mitigation, countries agreed to register their plans and to open them to discussion. A compromise was agreed in principle on monitoring those plans. And a timeline was agreed for 2015 to review the level of ambition. An adaptation framework was agreed to try to ensure that adaptation is no longer the poor sister of mitigation. Reforms to carbon offset markets were agreed, which will lower costs and help more flows go to low-income countries. It was agreed that the clean development mechanism could continue to operate after 2012, even in the absence of a new commitment period under the Kyoto Protocol. Progress was made under REDD, avoided deforestation, with agreement in principle on country-level approaches and the incorporation of forests into global offset carbon markets. And a mechanism for creating technology centres in key developing countries was agreed. Now, most of these agreements were in principle, and the great challenge for negotiators this year is to add flesh to the bones and to figure out what it actually means on a Monday morning. And the Durban Conference of the Parties will be extremely important later on in November and December this year, and it's going to be a very difficult